And welcome back. It's a new month, which means new wrap-up video, and we're starting off strong with um, an Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating by Cecilia Edward. I thought this was really cute and endearingly funny. It's about a witch named Thorn Scarheart who lives in 1690, and she is desperate to find love before she turns 40. So she's mixing it all up with potions and stuff that just don't work, and one potion accidentally flings her 300 years into the future. So she's in modern times, and she has to figure out how to navigate modern dating, modern plumbing, and all of those shenanigans, along with her familiar cat named Bandit and an adorable little um, human turned frog that hitched a ride with her. And this was really cute. The first 20% or so was slow, but once she went forward in time, it was go, 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 and the shenanigans were just super funny. The chapters were super fast, and it got to a point where I had to keep reading. I had to find out what happened and how things happened, and I stayed up until 5 in the morning to finish it in one night. So, definitely starting the month off strong. To my second book of the month, I finished Something in the Walls. Um, it's a horror story about a witch, a town that believes in witches, and its sinister history there, and a teenager who is claiming to be possessed by a witch. And there's ghosts thrown in there. The first half of the book was super, super creepy, and I was enjoying it, but after like the second half, there's a bit of a shift, and the ending was kind of a letdown for me. But so I really liked the first part of the book. The second half, not so much. I didn't like the way the witchiness was kind of just dropped in favor of a different type of conclusion. So my third book of the month is Lucy Foley's The Guest List, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. It's about this wedding that takes place on this secluded island, and um, someone someone gets someone dies at the wedding, and the whole book is leading up to. Most of the book is told in five perspectives of what happened the day before the wedding, and the hours leading up to the wedding, and it's interspersed with the now chapter, which is when people find out there's a body and they're going to search for it, and then you don't get to the body until over between 85 and 90%. You don't get to the body, but with there being five POVs and then a random few chapters at the end of a POV, the sixth one, it's kind of super easy to tell who the victim is, and you don't know who the killer is until the last few chapters. And all of that lead up was okay. There was only a couple of characters that I really cared about, but all of the perspectives had a reason to want the victim dead. You just don't find out which one it was until the very end. What I did really enjoy was each POV chapter. There's no chapters, like no chapter numbers. It's just every chapter is a different POV, and I liked that when it named who the POV was, it said who they were. Like Hannah was the +1, or Jules is the bride, or Aoife is the wedding planner, etc. So I did like how it reminded you who they were in connection to the wedding party. But yeah, I thought it was okay. I think it took a little too long to get to who the body was. I think I would have liked it knowing who the victim was up front, instead of just getting spoiled by. Like, I like to look at how many chapters there are, so I'll look at the table of contents and see whose POVs there are or how many chapters there are. So I kind of was a little spoiled from the beginning as to who the victim is, but I think it would have worked better if, as a reader, you were told who it was up front. So that way you could kind of see the threads being woven in figuring it out that way instead of waiting until almost the end to find out who the victim is and then who did it. But overall, I think it's a mid. Liked it, didn't love it. So my fourth book of the month was Dance of Thieves by, I think, Mary E. Pearson. It's I really, really highly enjoyed this. It was about an orphaned street thief turned premier guard of the queen, and she's charged with going into um, this outlaw town ruled by an outlaw family to bring back a traitor to the kingdom, basically. And um, it's so good. The romance in it was, I really enjoyed it. I kind of wished there was less miscommunication and more truth telling. However, it made for a great story. I liked the action. I really enjoyed it. It reminded me kind of of an old western, but not in a western setting. I thought it was great. So, fifth book of the month is Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle. It's a story about Daphne who mysteriously gets sheets of paper that detail how long each of her next relationships are going to last. And it's happened mysteriously her whole life until one day she gets a slip of paper with just a name on it and no time length, no time limit on it. And so she assumes that that is her one. And it's all about her grappling with life and a serious health condition that we don't really hear about until 60% in, which I didn't love that it wasn't until that we didn't hear about it until that late in the book. But I feel like this entire story throughout, I feel like Daphne and Jake, who was the guy with the blank slip of paper, no time limit to, I feel like they didn't really have much chemistry, so I didn't believe in their love story throughout the book. But I was rooting for her best friend, who happened to be an ex that she only got 3 months with. But overall, I enjoyed the story. So my next sixth read of the month was Ashley Elston's Anatomy of an Alibi. Two women, one dead husband, and only one alibi. Aubrey Price pretends to be Camille Bayliss for a day while Camille has to spy and get information on her husband, and then her husband winds up dead. And only one of those women has an alibi for where they are, and both could potentially have it pinned on them. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed figuring out how everyone was woven and tangled up together by the end. And the same thing with First Lie Wins. I think Ashley Elston is really good at creating complicated characters that I want to win, even if they're not perfect and they did shit that they don't really deserve to win for. I'm still rooting for them. So I really enjoyed this. I read this. I read it ebook and with the audiobook, so I immersively read it, and I liked it. I like how there were some the way that the information was disseminated. It kept my interest. I was intrigued the entire time. There was no one moment where I had it figured out. I was still surprised at the twists at the end, and I was also just along for the ride. I really liked it. So I think we're up to number 7 now, and that's Nora Roberts' The Obsession. Definitely check content warnings before you get into it, as it's the second half. The very beginning and the second half is quite a bit darker to read about. It's not a lighthearted, fluffy romance. So there is romance in it. But yeah, definitely check content warnings before getting into that. And yeah, other than it being really slow to get into the meat of it, I thought it was alright. Some parts of it were hard to read, and some parts of it I think were unnecessary. I feel like you could easily shave off about 100 pages of that. It's 469 pages, and for the first whole half of the book, it really just felt like setup or, moseying along without much of a plot. But it gets real heavy in the second half. So my 8th read of the month is Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. It's the inverse to Funny Story, which I gave 5 stars last year, and I don't think this one can quite be 5 stars, but I did really highly enjoy it. Um, People We Meet on Vacation is about Poppy Wright and Alex Nilsson, who are polar opposites, but somehow they become best friends, and every summer they go on a vacation. And that happens for at least 10 years until one summer their boundary gets crossed and they mess it all up and they don't talk for 2 years. And then Poppy decides, one more vacation. Let's try to get back to how we were. And I love their tension in this and how they both desperately don't want to lose their friendship, but also have to know that there's no denying their feelings for each other. And I really enjoyed their love story. Yeah, I think I have to go watch the Netflix movie like immediately now. Ninth book of the month is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. It follows Casey Fletcher, who is a disgraced actress who hasn't spent a day sober since her husband drowned in the lake, and she's kind of sent to her family's lake house to stay out of the press for a while. And so she occupies her time with drinking and using her husband's binoculars to spy on the other lake houses. There's a new couple that moved in, Catherine and Tom Royce, who are also celebrities in their own right. And what it's not everything is as it seems. One day she saves Catherine from drowning, but then the next she's missing, and and Casey is convinced that her husband has something to do with it. And this, I actually really enjoyed it. Um, there was a supernatural twist to it that came at about the 80 or so percent mark that I didn't see coming, plus another twist on top of that. And I feel like there was quite a few wow moments, like WTF moments for me. So I actually enjoyed this one. Hi, so 10th book of the month is Matched by Ali Condi. I first read this when it came out in paperback. I don't know how many years ago because I didn't look that up, but I was a teenager, and there are moments from this that still stuck with me to this day that I still remember about it. And the moments that I didn't remember, I enjoyed reading about again. Um, I never read The Hunger Games or Divergent when they came out, so I don't know how close or how much this reflects that era. But I do remember really loving the relationship between Cassia and Kai and not really seeing the love triangle aspect of it. And I think Cassia internally struggles about it a little bit, but I don't know. I didn't see the love triangle aspect of it, and I don't remember if there's more of an aspect to that in the second book or not. But I did. I enjoyed my reread, and I think it's worth it continuing on in the series. And um, for me, at least, continuing on and finally finishing the trilogy because I only own the first two books. Um, yeah, 10th book of the month, and the first half was a little slow, but that was because in every dystopian, when they're still ingrained in the society and believing in the rules and everything, and it feeling too cookie cutter when you're getting that set up, that part always irks me because I want to get to the action of it. I want to get to the rebelling. And once we got to her questioning and wondering and going, hey, this society isn't perfect, then it really sped up. And I didn't, there were a good chunk of it, like in the middle of Cassia and Kai's love story, where I just wanted to keep reading about them, wanted to keep being with them. And there were still aspects of it that kind of surprised me. There was no moment where I read something and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the entire plot now. Um, I did remember some key points of it, but that didn't detract from my reread at all, and I still enjoyed it. So, number 11 is Those Empty Eyes by Charlie Donnelly. It's about this 17-year-old girl who One night, her parents and her 13-year-old brother were murdered, and she gets arrested and accused of doing it. The press nickname her the Empty Eyes, and this lawyer helps her clear her name and win the case, and then make a defamation case against the state, and kind of takes her under his wing. And then 10 years later, she works at his law firm, helping protect innocence. Or not helping protect innocence, really, but helping get information. But she hasn't ever forgotten about her parents and her family being killed, and her tireless search for who actually was the killer. The middle was pretty slow. There's a bunch of different plot points that you don't really quite know how they intersect until the end. So there was quite a few times that I thought about DNFing it, but something made me keep going, and ultimately I do like the book. The last couple of paragraphs threw a wrench in everything that I thought I knew how it was going to resolve. It was someone... The last couple of paragraphs reveal it to be someone that I had kind of suspected but didn't want to suspect, and then thought wasn't a suspect up until the very, very end. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. Didn't see that coming. Kind of did, but didn't want to see it coming. So overall, I liked it. I had to push through the middle, though. I wanted to DNF it a couple of times, but I pushed through. The 12th read of the month is X Marks the Spot by Gloria Chow. It follows Gemma's son, who for her entire life she thought her grandparents were dead, and thus her ties to her Taiwanese culture, because her mom has fully assimilated, has fully Americanized everything. And Gemma had grown up with just her and her mom and hardly any of her Asian culture or heritage. And so one day, on the day of her high school graduation, some guy shows up and says that her grandfather has actually just died and left her basically left a treasure hunt for her in his will. And this was marketed as The Inheritance Games meets 13 Little Blue Envelopes, both books that I have actually read and loved, and this is no different. I really enjoyed this. The one hitch to Gemma's completing the treasure hunt is she needs to go with her ex, because it involves both of their families. Their families have a long history of love and betrayal, and the treasure hunt leads them on just this beautiful journey of culture and knowing their grandparents when it wasn't an easy thing for their grandparents to have opened up for them. Or in Gemma's case, it was impossible because her mom had split them off. And I loved the journey. I loved the culture in it. All of the food descriptions were amazing. And I felt I felt for Gemma when she was in a group of kids who all knew at least some Mandarin, and she was embarrassed and didn't know any of it, and just feeling like you're always on the outside looking in until you find your confidence and you lead forward, and just it was a beautiful story. I really enjoyed it. So I just finished Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. I think that's my 13th of the month. It was amazing. It doesn't quite replicate the magic of the first one and the found family in the first one, but in this one, the found family expands. I love that they don't just completely disregard all of the characters from the first one. They find small ways to bring them in, even a little bit at a time, and it's beautiful how this family it grows. It doesn't, it doesn't just negate all the progress from the first book. It was beautiful. It was a little bit darker than the first one, but it's also still funny. Vera is a champion. I love her. Everyone deserves a Vera in their lives. And for most of it, I was thinking it'll be a 4, but that last 10% really got me, and I think it bumped it up to a 5. I can't ignore the tears and the smiling through the tears. That it was just beautiful. I loved it. So it's a few hours later, and I just finished my 14th book. I only meant to read a couple of chapters of Heartless Hunter today, but I blazed through it. It gripped me in a way that I could not put it down. I could do nothing else but sit and read and be along for the ride. Um, it's a world where magic is outlawed, witches are hunted, and there's a secret witch named Rune who has been stealing all of the taken witches and breaking them out of prison and freeing them. And she goes by the Crimson Moth moniker. And her best friend's brother is the captain of the guard that is hunting them. He's the primary witch hunter. And it's a deadly game of cat and mouse, and there's so much tension in it. And I previously tried reading it before and got up to 4 chapters and then DNF'd it, but I picked it back up, and once I hit chapter 8, it was all systems go. Could not put it down. I'm so glad I gave it a second chance, and wow, yeah, that was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Are we up to number 15 now? I think we are. I just finished reluctantly Until the World Falls Down. It's billed as a Labyrinth meets Beauty and the Beast romantasy debut. I will not be picking up the second one. It's going straight to my donate pile. I cringed the entire time I read it. I did not like any of the characters. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the writing. Unfortunately. But because I owned it physically, I couldn't bring myself to fully DNF it. I had to see it through. And yep. Let's move on to the next book. So my next read was Finley Donovan is Killing It, and I thought it was really funny. I actually enjoyed it. It took a little bit more to get into it because I don't love a single parent story, but it's more than that. It's about Finley Donovan, who is a struggling author and a single mom in the midst of a custody battle with her ex and his new fiance. And she's overheard talking about the plot of her next book with her agent and mistaken for a contract killer. And the shenanigans in it were funny. Her trying to get out of things and accidentally getting sucked deeper into things were awesome. I liked her and Vero's dynamic, and the ending really set up the plot for the next one pretty good, I think. It made me intrigued, made me want to know more, and I enjoyed it. I finished the sequel to Matched, Crossed, and ultimately it took me far longer than I should to read this because I was bored through most of it. Unfortunately, it it tried to pick up a little bit at the end, but it was a big slog to get through about 80% of the book. So I don't know if I'm going to pick up the third one. I know it's available at the library, so I wouldn't have to pay for it. So I might do it just to see if I can get through it and finish it and find out what happens in the end. But somehow it's turning into a weird love square in here, and I don't even like love triangles a whole lot. So, it was okay. So last night I finished Riley Sager's Final Girls, or Final Girl. I don't remember whether it's girl or girls, but overall I liked it. I didn't see the big reveal coming, but the ending and the reveal disappointed me. It was a little slow in the beginning, and it picked up at the last 20%. But yeah, the big reveal disappointed me. I kind of wish it went in a different way. But overall, I still liked the book. It's about Quincy Carpenter, who is one of 3 of what the media deems a final girl, as in she survived a horrific massacre and she was the only one to survive and get away. And 10 years later, she thinks she's kind of put it all behind her, but she's never really remembered anything that happened that night due to her trauma. She doesn't really think about it much until one day one of the final girls is dead, and then the other one shows up on her doorstep and is trying to get her to remember everything, and it's kind of that psychological ride. Yeah, so I liked it, but I couldn't really get a feel for any of the characters, and part of that is because it's all twisty, turny, and there's themes of addiction and stuff like that. So look up your trigger warnings there. But overall, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but it wasn't a bad book. So I just finished Piranesi by Susanna Clark, and I laughed because one of the first reviews that I saw for the book said it gaslighted them into liking it, and I kind of agree. It was confusing, disorienting, intriguing. There was so much depth and metaphor for identity and belief in religion in there, and it was just highly impressive for something that was like under 250 pages. I think I have to sit with it for a little bit. But wow, it was really good. I went into it not really knowing anything about it, and I think that was a fun experience for me that I got to unwrap the story as it unfolded to me. It was just it's not for everyone. It's not going to be for everyone if you like much of a plot or anything like that, but it was a small cast of characters. It was very meandering. It This is how you do a labyrinth book, by the way. It was very fever dreamy. I agree with people that describe it as whimsical and dreamlike, and it was such a good book. It's something that I'm definitely going to think on and reflect on, and yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's not for everybody. So I just DNF'd Best Offer Wins. The main character was acting too entitled and spoiled to me, and I wasn't connecting with her. And so I looked up spoilers as to how the story was going to go. And yeah, not something I wanted to read. So I DNF'd it um, after a few chapters. So after that, I picked up the next novella. So quick short read in the Shatter Me series. It was called, I think it was Fracture Me. And it's basically a recap of the last chapter or so of Unravel Me, but in Adam's point of view. Wholly unnecessary. Did not need it. I didn't like Adam before, and now I hate him. I absolutely did not need this. It did nothing for the plot to me. It just proves that, yeah, I see why people like Warner over him. Hated Adam's point of view. And yeah, because it was mostly recap, I think it added nothing to the story. Unless you really like being in the mind of his character, but I wrote some spoilery kind of quotes down. So keep in mind, Adam is supposed to be in love with Juliet, and yet an actual quote is, "It's not good to make her think she can do this kind of thing when it'll probably get her killed." Um, get off your fucking high horse, Adam. Stop holding her back. He also likened her to a toddler with a dynamite stick, just because she doesn't quite know how to control her powers yet. And he said, and I quote, "A weak link can bring everything down with it." And sir, is that really how you talk about someone you love? I fucking hated being in his head. The, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. So I finished the spell shop last night. I was only going to read a couple of chapters before bed, and it sucked me in. I couldn't put it down, and I had to see it through to the end. It was so good. It was cute. It was cozy. It was magical. Oh, I loved it. It follows Keela, who was a librarian, and her sentient spider plant, and she worked in a library with spell books. And in the big city, magic is and spells are illegal if you're not one of the Empire's sorcerers. And the citizens rebel. There's a rising, and the library starts burning. So she and Kaz escape with as many spell books as they can, and she sails home to her island that her and her parents had left when she was a kid. And she comes to find out that the island is falling apart. It's poor, it's destitute without, and a lot of the crops are failing without the Empire sorcerers who used to regularly visit and no longer do. So, in order to survive herself, what does she do? She opens up a spell shop and uses those spells to help bring life back to the island. And it's so adorable. I loved all the magical creatures and the setting, and it was a great time. So, my final and I think 22nd book of the month snuck in right on the last day of the month. I technically finished it at 12:30 on the first, but I'm counting it for this month. It's The Astral Library. It's about um, this girl Alex who is kind of desperate and lonely and sad and just with nowhere to go. Everything in her life is upside down, and she stumbles through a door at the library, and it opens up into a magical library that offers people sanctuary for people who have nowhere else to go. And in that magical library, you can jump into a book and live in the pages of a book. And how awesome is that? As she's about to go into her first book, however, things start happening and it feels like the library and its patrons are under attack. So she's got to work with this early librarian to save the library. And I thought it was really good. It was fast paced. It was under 300, just under 300 pages. It was such a good, easy, refreshing read before I go into this next month. But thank you for being here, and I'll see you next month.